Hi, the subject of our lecture today is social development in adolescence. And of course, you all know how important social development is and the social sphere is for adolescents and the way that they interact with their peers, with the peer group. We're going to talk about the best friends. We're going to talk about the cliques and the wider circles that they belong to. And the widest circle is the peer group. When we talk about peers, we're talking about kids all over the world, their age. This phenomenon is especially current these days due to globalization. So kids, I was just in, where was I? Hamburg, Germany, in I think it was August, and then I went on this tour and I saw a lineup with girls for a rock concert, and they looked exactly like my daughters here in Israel, Hamburg, Germany. You know, if you go to New York, I guess it's the same thing. Because they all learn from one another, and we have the World Wide Web and so on. Um, so the peer group is the widest circle, and um, and and basically what we say a lot about adolescence is that during the first, let's say, 10, 11, 12 years, depending when you start adolescence, you have to experience all sorts of things with your family, with sort of proving your competencies at school. And then when you reach adolescence, you have to do it all over again with peers, with the peer group in a much more competitive sort of environment. So if we talk about social development in pre-adolescence, then we see that, you know, kids at that stage, they begin to expand their world, and then they have wider social circles, not just kids from their class. At this period, we're talking 11, 12 to 14-year-olds. They're still organized in single-sex groups, and girls tend to be in pairs. And gradually, it becomes more of a co-ed kind of mixed groups and stuff like that. Um, and much later, not that much later, but the couples that start to form. I mean, when we talk about couples, you can see kids, you know, saying they have girlfriends and boyfriends at the sixth grade, but I would say that that's more of a status issue than any kind of relationship, really. So adolescence brings a lot of changes in kids' ability in the environments, and but we have to remember that it's linked to the past. So you can't start over at seventh grade and just say this is a totally new kind of experience. So research shows us quite clearly that there is coherence and consistency in kids' social abilities over time. Things don't just change once you go into middle school. Of course, there are kids who use this new opportunity to change things in their lives, but they are a minority, not the rule. So during adolescence, all the tasks are quite different. I referred to that before because the competitive aspect of doing this vis-a-vis your peers is much more pronounced at that point. So and I think the whole issue of competition is very important in adolescence. This is the currency that adolescents use, their social acceptance, their popularity. This is what's important for adolescents, and they really use it. I think middle school is where it's most pronounced. You know, seventh to ninth grade is where kids are very competitive when it comes to their social acceptance, to their popularity, and And at the same time, they show greater ability to be intimate, to form intimacy with others. They have they have closer relationships. They're able to talk more about their feelings, and in this way, they form stronger relationships. So as I said, the widest circle is the peer group, and it goes beyond the town or the neighborhood, all the way to looking at the whole world. And here in Israel, we see a lot of American influence, and yeah, a butterfly flaps its wings in New York, and we see it here. We see it here in Tel Aviv for sure. And the kids are very observant when it comes to that. Immediately when something happened, kids, they just know it. One of the things that I'm always amazed about is the trends in games and computer games. And for example, look at the spinner trend. It came one day, when was it, 2, 3 years ago, and all of a sudden every kid had a spinner, and it disappeared exactly the same way it came. And when it comes to computer games, they know exactly what the trend is. For example, um, Fortnite, Minecraft, Brawl Stars. There was the whole slime trend that they were into for a while. I think it's subsided now. One time in my clinic, I got an email, and it said that the Israeli game company, they're launching a new game, Monopoly Fortnite. So I said immediately I'm going to get it for my clinic. So I immediately ordered it online, got it within a week, had it in my clinic. I still do, and a kid comes like that week or so, and he looks at, and I tell him, I got a new game, Monopoly Fortnite. He looks at me, he looks at the game, and he says, "Oh, you're so behind on trends." So it's very it's very quick the way that they turn, and they know exactly what's in and what's out. And of course, I hope you all know that, for example, they will not use social media. Adolescents will not use social media such as Facebook. Facebook is for old people, and they know exactly what to use. Yes, Instagram and TikTok and whatever new trend there is, they'll know it exactly. So the second circle after the peer group is the social milieu. So these are groups where it's semi-formal in the sense that you join them. It's not competitive. You just join, and there's usually an adult or someone sort of guiding the group. So this can be a classroom. So a classroom is a social milieu, but it's not, something competitive. And there's a teacher there. It could be the youth movement, Hatzofim, and stuff like that. When the scouts, when there's a guide there, and you just join. It's a bit more competitive than the class, because if the other kids behave nasty, then you may leave the Boy Scouts, or the other, any other youth movement, but still it's not really competitive, as we'll see in the next uh, type of group, the clique. And the social milieu, it serves as a training camp for adult functioning. For example, when you get a job, you know how to behave yourself and how to get along with other people. Of course, there are friends within the classroom, and a lot of the time these friendships develop into the cliques that we'll talk about it um, soon. So this is not as stressful as the subgroup, as the cliques. And the clique is the smallest, the intimate group. It's between 4 and 12 participants. They have a greater connection. By the way, when I say 4 to 12, then when it's girls, it's smaller. When it's boys, it's more. This is competitive. So this is personal attraction. You need to you'll only be in a clique if people want you to be in the clique, and if they don't, you won't be, and you'll be sort of banned from it or out of it. So this can be a very important cornerstone of adolescence, and the adolescent can use it to get encouragement, belonging, loyalty, devotion, empathy, feedback, a lot of things that are very important for adolescents. The clique can be supportive, can defend, it can calm you in a crisis and a pressure. But of course, there are pressures of its own. We'll talk also about aggression and relational aggression soon, so that's part of what can happen within a clique. And you can call it the sort of most intimate circle is friendships, and they are different from the friendships that kids had earlier in their life. This is more personal, more intimate. You're able to share vulnerabilities. They take this friendship very seriously. I remember talking to my daughter once, and she said to me, that she has a very good friend for a month now. It may be only a month, but they really got to know each other, and um, it's more meaningful than a lot of other relationships she had in the past, including with me. So it's they take it very, very seriously. Um, and they a lot of the time they feel very strongly, that they found their soulmate, that they found someone that that can really relate to their interests, to their motivations, and so on. So of course, friendships strengthen the emotional lives of adolescents, and they look for people who see the world in a similar way, and generally it can be an idealized kind of experience where they always feel positive with their friends. And research has shown that adolescent moods tend to be more positive on weekends. Isn't it great that we have research to tell us that? So, and the BFF, the best friend, that's very important. It's the most intimate, the closest partner. A lot of the times it's people who know each other from childhood, and we have this, these kids, these adolescents who, they go to school together, they come back from school together, then they sort of go with their friend all the way to his house, and then go back to their house with a friend again, and then the friend stays over, and they spend the whole day together. So it can be very tight, these friendships. Almost no envy or competition a lot of the time, and a lot of similar perceptions, feelings, and behaviors. Um, the BFF can support, can counsel, can assist with tasks and activities. Of course, you feel, that you have someone with you, with a friend. You don't feel lonely. It strengthens self-esteem. It supports psychological adjustment. The best friend functions as a sort of a psychologist, a confidant, someone you can talk to. And when we talk about the cliques, then a lot of the time that's the way to get in. through a friend, right? Peer pressure. So there is research to show that um, adolescents have an increased tendency to risk behaviors when they're in friends' presence. So for example, in this interesting research by Gardner and Steinberg, they showed that when the adolescents were with peers, they were more likely to engage in risk behaviors. Another thing that happens, it happens in in earlier stages as well, but in adolescence, it's also a problem. Is bullying, which is defined as a pattern of aggressive behavior over time. So my personal opinion is that the peak in nasty behavior is between seventh and ninth grade, and especially seventh and eighth grade. And there we can see also the peak in bullying behaviors that it can impact very badly on the victims, causing them social isolation, somatic problems. These days, there's also cyberbullying that's very significant. Um, I work a lot with kids who are bullied, and I use this method. It's a CBT method designed by a psychologist who he's an American psychologist, but he also lived here in Israel for a few years. His name is Izzy Kalman, and he has a very nice method talking about how you can, he says, turn your bullies into buddies, or basically stop bullying by changing your attitude. That's the basic. So what he teaches kids, and what I teach kids when I use his method, is that bullying is a game. And basically in this game, the only thing that matters is who gets upset. Once you get upset, then the bullies will continue, and because that's fun for them. And if you manage not to get upset, truly allow these bullies to say whatever they want without caring. That's the point. That in a very sort of deep level, you just allow them to say whatever they want. You just don't care. Then it will lose the point completely. There's no point in bullying someone when he just doesn't care. And then you'll be able to get over the bullying. I'll also put a link to a very nice clip that someone did, and his name is Brooke Gibbs, and he uses Izzy Kalman's method to show how to deal with bullies. I'll put that in a separate clip, and you're welcome to watch it to explain more about this method. Relational aggression is all the bullying that is not very physical, but is more harming through relations and reputations and dirty looks and spreading rumors and so on and so forth. It's more common in girls than in boys, and generally girls they do more of that relational aggression, and their sort of fights, if you want to call it that, they last longer. Boys use more physical aggression, but they get over it more quickly. In general, girls are more skilled in navigating relationships. They're more into relationships, into talking. Boys are much more into doing stuff. When girls meet, they talk. When boys meet, they have to do something. They play soccer. They play computer